We are going live. All right. So, welcome everybody to the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast with your host, Chase Steffes. To my left, you've got Derek Larger, who is now in Texas with his brother. Okay. He
Yep.
has officially moved down there for 4 months while his brother's doing an internship. And, Derek, how is Texas for you?
Oh man, I can already tell you the heat down here is something different. It is a different kind of heat than what you would normally see up in the Midwest. I mean, it's like it's probably like mid 80s up there right now at the most, but right now, like down here, you'd be lucky if it stayed in the low 90s. So it has definitely been it's been a little bit of an adjustment in the first couple days, but I think I'll get used to it after a while.
Now, do you have AC?
Oh yeah, we got AC. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This place is perfectly cooled down just the way we like it. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's even been too cool for my brother, which is hilarious. But I enjoy it because I have a few extra pounds on me. I can handle it. But
There you
him
go.
being the string bean that he is, just can't handle it.
There you go. So moving on, we've had a good show for the past couple, weeks getting the NFL news out there. And this past week we've had the second preseason games for a lot of NFL teams, including my favorite one with the Browns today. You had the Lions and Colts, I think, on Friday night, and so many other ones. I think one that kind of like is shocking to me is how well the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing and how much better they're playing as a team compared to what they were last year, including the preseason, because even in the preseason last year they did not look like they were forming very well as a unit. And
Bill's just absolutely destroying the Broncos.
yes,
Absolutely destroying them.
annihilating them. And that was what was so funny, because Josh Allen looked like he was in preseason form. I mean, sorry, mid-season form
already. Yeah.
And, it's a night and day difference. But I will sit here and say that we have got a lot of stuff to get into, especially now we know officially with the Deshaun Watson news on how many games he's going to be suspended. Because at first it was 6 games brought on by Sue Robinson. Then the NFL filed an appeal and figured out what they were going to discuss to get. They wanted to try to get a minimum of a 1-year suspension. But Deshaun Watson and his representatives settled with the NFL on a certain amount of games and a $5 million fine. The amount of games is now 11 games set up with set up to where he is going to go play the Houston Texans on week 13. What is your thoughts? Do you feel like they kind of picked 11 just because he's playing the Texans when he comes back and that's going to be a big money grab? Or do you feel like 11 is a reasonable number to where people look at it and they're like, okay, it's not 17, but it's not 6? Like, why do you feel like they did not give that extra game in there to make it an even amount, like just 6 more than what it was?
Well, I definitely think that the NFL kind of wised up and knew that if they made this thing go to court, that most likely they are not going to win this because, you and I have talked about this from the very get-go, that the CBA had printed out the rule very clearly that the NFL cannot go against what the CBA states when it comes to punishments like this. And when a third party gives out a punishment, the NFL cannot just redirect it and give out whatever punishment it wants. So it can't do that. But I will say this. I honestly have no idea what the NFL was thinking in this regard, Chase, and I'll explain why. The NFL already is getting a bad light from a lot of fans because a lot of fans are dumb enough to think that the NFL was the one that was giving out this punishment of 6 games in the first place. And you already had a bunch of people blaming the NFL for the fact that he was not getting suspended more. And now you made the impression that you were going to go for a minimum of a year for your punishment. And you were getting some people to understand that, we do care about this. We don't want Watson playing this year because he does not deserve it. And so the NFL had a chance to say, we're showing women around the world, we're showing the NFL community around the world that we are standing up against this kind of behavior. And we're going to go against what even the CBA says to try and make that a case. And the fact that they settled for only 11 games, which from what we heard is even less than the absolute bare minimum that the NFL wanted to take in the trial in the first place, it destroys all credibility with the NFL. All of it.
Mhm.
Like, NFL had any credibility in this case whatsoever, it's gone. Like, you settled for less games and a $5 million fine for a player that you wanted to suspend at bare minimum 12 games just a month ago. And the fact that you now are going even less just to settle this, you're right. It might have been a money grab for the fact that he's going to be playing at Houston the first game he comes back. Maybe that was the NFL's thinking about it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the NFL had a chance, even if they went against the CBA and they went against it. And then they showed that they were still willing to go that route, even if it was going against their own word. They still would have had the opinion of the public opinion would have been better towards the NFL if they had just stuck that course. It was wrong. It would have been wrong. It would have been unjustified. It would have been all these things. But public opinion would have sided with the NFL regardless of whether or not it ended up being a year or not. It didn't matter. It would have been better for the public opinion. Now you made it worse by settling for even less. So look, 11 games, regardless of whether or not you think it's the right punishment or not, doesn't really matter at this point. At the end of the day, Watson's going to play after an 11-game suspension, and the NFL shot themselves in the foot again.
Yeah. I mean, whether or not, people agree with this, and, I think that it's because, with able to come out and
your internet's cutting in and out. I'm not your audio.
Can you hear me?
No, your audio messed up ever since you moved your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's extremely.
It was
distorted.
weird because.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah.
We're gonna try this again, folks. We're gonna see if it makes it better. Chase decided to move his computer, and then that made it worse. It just stopped working altogether.
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you better now. Yeah.
All right.
You moved your computer, and then it all of a sudden just stopped working. All of a sudden.
Sorry. So technical difficulties. My bad. But anyway, yeah. So I think 11 games is fair, not just because of being a Browns fan. I'm putting my bias aside, but also I think it's fair just because with the lack of evidence and the lack of proof that you've had in this case, trying to figure this out, it is very hard to judge what is and is not right. Yes, you can sit there and say the 24 women coming out is bad, but I look at it because I've had Steelers fans, people from the AFC North arguing with me, and I told Steelers fans and Ravens fans they have no room to talk in this whatsoever because Ray Lewis shot 2 people and got away with it and people cheered for him. He's now in the Hall of Fame, and we're riding it high when he was reaching the end of his career. Same thing with Big Ben. He raped 2 women, and their argument is oh, well, this was never proven. It's like the evidence was proven and brought to court, and also all of it was on TV and you could find it on the internet, and yet he got 4 games, and everybody still cheered him on through the rest of his career. What makes Watson's thing so more significant is because there's more women, but it's a less of a or less of what he had to deal with it because Big Ben raped 2 women, and I think that is a lot worse than accusations of 24 women. So to be real honest, I think 11 games is fair. Should it have been more? Yes, I would have been okay if it was a year long, but I think 11 games is fair. I think 6 games was not enough. But, if you were going to go with, the middleman, I would have just done 12 games. It's 6 more games than what you originally wanted. The settlement would have been perfect. But I think what pisses a lot of people off right now is he apologized and then took it back, claiming that he still says his innocence, and then says the reason why he apologized is everybody feels triggered about this. Now, I understand if you claim that you're innocent, that's fine. Claim you're innocent until proven guilty, but just don't attack the fans or everybody else for coming at you because they feel a certain way. You just keep it bottled up inside, go out there and play the football that you do, and let everybody else handle the things around you, and you be professional and everything when it comes to being in front of the media.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, just how, especially being in that press conference that Haslam had with Watson recently. I mean, it was definitely very awkward, but at the end of the day, it's 11 games. We finally have a official verdict now. Like, it is all taken care of.
It's
11
done.
games it's done. The news is over. Time to move on from a completely different topic now, because now we can discuss something different.
Yes, and I did want to say this. We discussed it over chat and over text. I am very confident in my team that when Watson comes back, we still have a shot at the playoffs. You may think that we don't, but looking at the schedule, looking at who we play, and even with an injured Baker Mayfield last year with a broken shoulder, we still were able to manage to squeak out 6 games that we won with just him having a broken shoulder. And I think that with that team that we had, we've got almost all of the same pieces back, if not more. We can squeak out at least 6 wins before Watson comes back. That would put us at 6-5. And then we would have to win at least 3 of the last 6 games in order for us to squeak into the playoffs. And that's very possible with Watson coming back in the last few opponents that we have in the Saints, the Commanders, and the Texans for 3 of the last 6 games that we got to play. It's doable. It'll be tough. But moving on to more Browns news, Josh Dobbs was the starter for the past 2 preseason games. And, well, Watson was the one for the first preseason game for 5 plays, and then Josh Dobbs came in. But, Derek, we have talked time and time again that you cannot hype up the preseason because you could have players that ball out and do very good and then choke their time away when it comes regular season, especially against the starters. But this man being on the Steelers for the past 4 years, finally getting a chance to start in a preseason game, and this week balled out again when he was out on the field, not just throwing the ball, but with his legs as well. There's arguments out there that people are making that they want him to start over Jacoby Brissett. And after watching him play for these past 2 preseason games and what he's been able to do with just the 2s on the field, it makes me wonder what he can do with the 1s. And it's kind of got me thinking, should the Browns explore the option of starting Josh Dobbs over Jacoby Brissett?
Well, I can definitely tell you I understand the situation that you're in as a Browns fan, because right now, as a Colts fan myself, we're actually dealing with the same kind of predicament right now. Not necessarily for who's going to start week 1, but who should be getting basically that quarterback number 2 job right now. And the Colts have that situation with Sam Ehlinger versus Nick Foles. You have these reports of Nick Foles having because Nick Foles having a surgery back in 2018 that apparently cut his arm strength down, and he's looked okay in the preseason. While Sam Ellinger, on the other hand, in 2 preseason games, Chase has completed 91% of his passes, has completed for over 300 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, posting an almost perfect quarterback rating in 2 games. He has looked phenomenal, light years ahead of what he did last year in the preseason. And now you have everyone in Colts Nation thinking Sam Ellinger cannot go back to the practice squad. As good as he is playing, even against 2s and 3s, it just makes sense because he looks like a different quarterback. Again, it is the preseason. You have to remember that it is one of those things that things get vanilla. You're playing against players that are not the same. At the end of the day, coaches ultimately will decide who gives you the best chance to win on Sundays. Dobbs may have bigger play potential than what Jacoby Brissett does, and I think from a athletic standpoint, I think we all agree that Dobbs is a little bit better of an athlete than Jacoby Brissett is. And who knows, maybe he has a few better pass play opportunities where he rolls out and does things like that, right? But ultimately, what you trust in your backup quarterback is to not cost you games.
Mm-hmm.
And does Dobbs offer that? We don't know. Jacoby Brissett, most of the time, will not cost you games. He won't win you many games, but he won't cost you many
He's
games.
been very careful with the ball over the past years as a starter.
Yes. He's been a very game manageable quarterback for his entire career. And it was the same way with New England. It was the same way with Indy. And it was the same way with Miami. Now it's going to probably be the same thing with Cleveland. And like you said, my opinion for Cleveland to have a chance to make it to the playoffs, Cleveland at minimum has to win 6 of their first 11 games in order to make it. And then when Watson comes back, Watson's going to have to win, in my opinion, 5 of the last 6 games in order for Cleveland to have a shot to make it in, because you're going to be behind on not only the division record, but an overall record. So in turn, you just have to think who gives you the best chance to be over 500 when Watson gets back. And ultimately, I just still think Jacoby Brissett will force less turnovers, will be more careful with the ball in his hands. While that may not win you a lot of games, you have mentioned it, and I agree with you. Your overall roster is built good enough to be able to win games on the back of a Jacoby Brissett, as long as he is doing enough offensively to get you to move the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. So Dobbs, I don't think is going to be that starter as much as I think he could be. Like I said, I'm kind of in the same boat with Indianapolis and Sam Ellinger. I love what Sam Ellinger is doing. He's showing me that, like, oh my God, he's a completely different quarterback. Why not give the man a shot, right? And that's the argument that everybody wants to make because, you know, it's flashy, it's amazing, it's awesome. It's all you can think about. But when it comes to playing against real ones, the story changes a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I feel like if Dobbs would have had a chance to start with the Steelers at some point, we would be talking a different tune right now. Mm-hmm. Because if we could have seen what Dobbs could have done with the Steelers, with that receiving core, with Najee Harris, you know, being that guy, if we would have been able to see what he could do and he was able to produce numbers and put wins together, we would be having that debate on, is Dobbs a better option than Jacoby Brissett? And we wouldn't even be questioning it. It would be a serious debate. But now, since we've really haven't seen much of what Dobbs brings to the table, but we've got a sample size of what Jacoby brings to the table, I think that it's safe to say that Jacoby does have the athleticism. He's got the legs. He's got the arm strength. He's got the accuracy. It's just a matter of if he can feel comfortable enough to make the big game throws and push the ball down the field, taking the chances that he wants rather than trying to be conservative with it. And that's ultimately what's going to decide some games for us, because we're going to ride it on the backs of Chubb and Hunt and our defense. But if Jacoby can make a few throws here and there, to get the ball down the field, I think that we have a good shot of winning at least 6 of our first 11 games, especially with the way that our record plays out. And we'll have to wait and see. So moving on to the next topic, we had discussed in our last episode that Roquan Smith had requested a trade out of Chicago because he felt disrespected with the contract offers that were being talked about with him and the GM. They were not on the same page, and he felt like he could get a lot more money elsewhere and felt like he deserved to be paid top 5 linebacker money, which, in my opinion, he does deserve to be paid top 5 linebacker money. And it was reported that he showed up to camp and is willing to play on his current contract and has said that he is going to bet on himself to finish out the season and hope that he gets a big name contract. Derek, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, shout out to freaking Roquan Smith. I mean, to be in that situation where you feel disrespected, but still show up and say that I'm doing this not for the Chicago management, but I'm doing it for the fans, and not only for the fans, but for myself. He knows that he's a talented player. He knows that barring any career-ending injury, he knows that he is going to get a contract at the end of this season regardless. And who knows, if he does continue to go out and put on a show of over 100 tackles this next year, force a few turnovers, be a stud that we know that he is, then he knows he's going to get some good money regardless. He's going to get a contract, whether that be with another team or if that's with Chicago, one way or the other. But we know that Roquan is going to get a contract when it's all said and done. And he's betting on himself. Like you said, he's betting on himself on having another fantastic year and showing another team that I'm worth the money that I know that I'm asking. And I know that the Bears don't want to pay me, but I know another team will if I show once again that on my last year of my contract that I'm going to be able to do that. And he's only, 26? So, I mean, like, he's still in his prime. The next contract he's going to get, he's going to be in that close to being the top linebacker contract money that we're seeing. So no question about it. He's just saying, I'm going to suck it up. I'm not going to make myself look bad by holding out on this team. I'm just going to go do what I got to do. And then next year, he's setting himself up for the future, basically. And that's what this move is all about, is knowing I most likely will not be a Chicago Bear at the end of this year. It's probably going to end up being somewhere else because my GM doesn't want to pay me. But if I show that I'm committed to this game, somebody else is going to want to give me that money.
Yeah, I agree. And a side note here, congratulations to Derwin James for securing the bag that he
I told you he was going to get that bag, bro. I told you he was going to be the number 1 highest paid safety.
I knew he would. It was just a matter of when. It was a matter of when, not if. It was a matter of when. Because I thought it was going to come after this next year, thinking that they wanted to wait one more year to figure out, if he was worth it. But the Chargers thought he was. And, all power to him. And I think that he is a great safety. So he deserves
what do you think of Jim Irsay stating that he believes that a Quentin Nelson contract extension will get done very shortly?
What's like my...
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you think that Quentin Nelson's going to get an extension this offseason still? Because, yes. I mean, it's getting close to being season time.
If he doesn't get one this offseason, he will get one during the season.
Yeah, I think that could definitely happen. I mean, we're talking big money here, man. I mean,
he is the best guard in the league.
Guard. He might only be a guard, but he is probably the second best offensive lineman in the NFL, only behind Trent Williams right now. And we saw what Trent Williams was getting paid, right? I mean, we saw Trent Williams getting paid 6-year, $120 million. So,
oh yeah, and Joel Bitonio just got a contract extension last offseason, and Bitonio is top 3 in guards at his position, like, and what he's getting paid, and his teammate opposite of him, Wyatt Teller, also got a contract extension. So, and I think that Quentin Nelson is better than both of them. So I think that if you got Batonio getting paid and Wyatt Teller getting paid the money that they did, I truly believe that Nelson deserves to be
You
the
think
highest
Nelson
paid
gets the 100 mil range?
for him, and as at his position at guard. Guard is probably the second hardest position to find like security for on the offensive line. I would say, yeah, he could reach that 5 years, $25 million per year range. So
Whew. It's crazy. I would love that. I mean, I'd love it if he gets a contract similar to what Leonard has, like 5 years, 100 mil. I would be okay with that.
yeah, that's 25 million a year. Oh yeah, Shaquille Leonard deserved it. Best linebacker in the league, my opinion.
Yep.
And Quentin Nelson is, my opinion, the best guard in the league. I mean, I'm not going bias here. I think Batonio, yeah, he's a great guard, but I don't think he's the best, and I don't even think he's the top two. He's probably borderline number 5 in my opinion. So we'll.
Gotcha.
But like if he got paid all that money, I think Quentin Nelson deserves to get paid a lot more. So
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't remember what the contract was that Batonio got paid or Wyatt Teller, but if both of them got paid the big bucks, then I think Nelson definitely is gonna get it. And yes, Jim Irsay is not a guy scared to pay players big money, and we saw it with Andrew Luck when he first got paid. So
Oh yeah.
all right. So the next thing, Derek, take it away. What's the
All right.
next topic we got?
All right, we'll deal with the top 100 players list here shortly. But I wanted to bring this up, Chase, because we've been hearing some news coming out of the 49ers recently, and it's been very, very interesting. So obviously everyone knows that the 49ers are looking to trade Jimmy Garoppolo out of the 49ers sooner rather than later, but this most recent news coming out might put a damper on that. The 49ers coming out of camp stated that Jimmy G basically blew off the 49ers after signing his contract 3 years ago, stating that after he signed the contract, he basically stopped talking to the 49ers. He did not answer phone calls. He showed back up close to camp and whatnot. But for the longest time after his contract, Jimmy G basically just blew him off and said that he's not going to do anything for him. So what do you make of this news? I mean, if this is legitimate, this could really hurt not only the 49ers, but Jimmy Garoppolo landing anywhere.
So my initial thoughts on this, I thought two things. The first one is that this is going to hurt the Niners' chances of getting anybody to want to trade for him, regardless of how good that they think that he is. Because if he doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to show up, doesn't want to stay in contact with the coaches, the GM, the management staff, anybody, that's a big problem for anybody wanting like if they're going to have to give up like a second round pick or something to get him. That's going to be a big, big issue. And then there's also the fact that, he's got to learn all the playbooks. He's got to learn doing all this and whatnot. Now, the second thing behind it is I don't think it's going to hinder him, because I was kind of torn between two things. Like, it's going to hurt them, but it's not going to hurt them. The reason why I think it's not going to hurt them is, again, two things. The first one is, was it a product of Kyle Shanahan and how good of coaching he was, or as good as a coach as he was, and the system that he was playing, and how good that roster was? Or is Jimmy G as good, if not better, than what we all think that he really is? And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the 49ers, when he first initially got traded there, he got traded there halfway through the season. He finished the last 6 games of the season, went 6-0 to end the season. Then the next year, the 49ers went 12-0 before he finally got his first loss, and then took them to the Super Bowl, and then has taken them to the NFC title game 2 years in a row since then, and failed to get them to the final big game. Now, the question is, did Jimmy G get them to the Super Bowl and get them to all those wins because of how good of a QB he is? or is it because of how good of a head coach that Kyle Shanahan is? That's the question that you're looking at. Because if it was all based off of Jimmy G and how good he actually is, people are going to look at that and they're going to be like, okay, we've got to trade for this guy, regardless of the issues that he has of not showing up. If he's this good and can win us the games, we're going to trade for him. Now, on the flip side, if they're looking at it and they contact the Niners and everything, and he does not want to, communicate with anybody and doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to show up, doesn't want to be there to work, then that's the other end of the spectrum where they're going to be like, do we give up a second, a first, a second and a third to get him, and then risk him not coming to camp or not coming to practice, and then we just wasted a draft pick. So initially, it's all a matter of what an organization deems what side of Jimmy G they want to go with and what they're looking at.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely is a interesting dynamic. We'll see how that shapes out. And, there's a lot of other things that, have popped up. You're talking about a bunch of different injuries that have happened recently. I'll just say this. We'll just go off on a quick tangent here. We already know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lost their center and their left guard at this point. Mm-hmm. And in the last preseason game yesterday, just lost their backup left guard as well for the season. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are already down 3 offensive linemen already in this. How concerning is this, Chase, for Tampa Bay? Because obviously you got Tom Brady coming back this year, even though, he's supposed to come back this week from some personal reasons that we still don't understand fully what it was. But, from what the rumors are reporting is that Tom Brady's head may not be in the right headspace right now. And you're on top of it now, you're just losing all these offensive linemen right now. I mean, how concerning is this for Tampa Bay with losing all these players?
If I'm a fan of Tampa Bay, I wouldn't be too worried at all, because there's 2 things. One is it's Tom Brady. This has been a guy that has missed 2 preseason games with the Patriots, or 3, or has not played in any preseason action whatsoever over the past few years, and has come out and dominated. So whether or not his headspace is there at the moment, when he comes back, he's fully dedicated to the football and the team, and you don't have to worry about it. The second thing is, going to his last couple of years in New England, he started having one of the worst offensive lines that he's ever had since he's been with the Patriots. And he was still getting the ball off before the 1 second marker. It was like 0.87 or 0.98 or 1.2 seconds. And he was still getting the ball off very, very quickly. And I think that's what's going to happen now. Even if they get their guard and center, or their guard and tackle gone, whatever it may be, I think he's still going to get the ball off very quickly before he gets sacked, and he's going to make plays happen like he always does. This is Tom frickin' Brady and the frickin' Buccaneers. Until this man is going to retire fully and never come back, he is the NFL, he is the Superman of the NFL, and the only one that's his kryptonite is Nick Foles and the New York Giants.
All right. One more thing here we'll hop into before we go into the top 100 players. And like I said, there's a million other things that we could talk about. Maybe we'll do another episode here early this week, and then we can kind of cover things that we didn't. But we can talk about Stephen Jones, the GM of the Cowboys, saying Dak Prescott is having his best camp that I've seen from him since he's been a Cowboy. Stated last training camp, Dak Prescott dealt with a muscle strain in his throwing arm as he recovered from a fractured foot. This year, the Cowboys quarterback is healthy and impressing during offseason work. Obviously, Chase, the news coming out of Dallas for the most part has been nothing good in result of we've seen Trayvon Diggs getting torched in camp. We've seen the offensive line look ferocious and not covering him at all. Yeah, so we've seen there's been a lot of chat about the rest of the Cowboys roster not looking very good. but we haven't really talked about Dak. Do you buy the fact that Dak Prescott is having his best camp since being a Cowboy, and does that mean anything?
I'd say yeah, only because, before Dak got injured, like suffered that gruesome injury, we saw how good he actually was, and we saw how good of a player that, he was transitioning into be. And for the first 4 games of the season before he got injured, he was having on pace to break the single season passing record, because he had like 1,200 yards, or if that, in just 4 games. And the fact that he got that much in just 4 game time period, like, we were looking at him to be on pace to hit almost 6,000 passing yards. Now, whether he would have kept that up through the whole season, we never know. But we saw without Dak how bad that Cowboys team really was. And then we seen last year when he came back that with him in the lineup, he gives them a much better chance to succeed and win than what it does without him. And like, you could say that with any team and their starting quarterbacks and everything like that. But like, if you've got a decent backup with a built team, even a stacked team can take a mediocre to average quarterback to, like, very far in the playoffs and to the Super Bowl. I mean, we saw it with Nick Foles. Now, Nick Foles is no scrub, but he also was not Carson Wentz the year that he got hurt, because like Wentz was, putting up MVP type numbers. But you saw that with a stacked team, they were able to carry Nick Foles to a Super Bowl win. The Cowboys are not built that way. They need Dak in there to be able to win. And I think that, in my opinion, they should cut Zeke, cut ties with him, free up $15 million in cap, go with Tony Pollard, and then, go from there. Maybe trade for Kareem Hunt if you feel like you need another running back on this list. But Zeke is not going to do it for you. I feel like he's holding the Cowboys back. And if you want to succeed and propel yourself into a playoff win, you've got to get rid of some weak links and make your team stronger.
Well, I mean, I can only imagine Dak having as good a camp as he can, but at the end of the day, like, I think we all understand how good Dak can be, and even at his peak, don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. Barely is top 10. And I mean, when you're looking at the rest of this roster, we know just how bad it's gotten. And he has Mike McCarthy, who I don't think should be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys right now. So, Dak being so impressive in camp is only going to get them so far. They're only as good as their head coach allows them to be. And now, they always have these close games when, they're getting blown out for 3 quarters, and then Dak Prescott throws for 200 yards in the 4th quarter, making his stats look a million times better than what they actually are. That's been the story of his life all his career. So, does this like make me think different about where the Cowboys could be with Dak? No, it doesn't, because I've seen the camp. I've seen the footage. I've seen how bad that offensive line is. I've seen how bad Trayvon Diggs looks. I've seen how bad the rest of the team has looked. And Dak Prescott ain't no Andrew Luck. I mean, Andrew Luck had a lot less than what Dak Prescott has to work with right now. And he did much more than what Dak Prescott's capable of doing. So at the end of the day, don't think Dak Prescott's camp is going to do anything for him. But
yeah,
let's go into the top 100 players, shall we?
Yeah. So, side note, anybody that is tuned into the 100 players, we can go over a few of them. We're not going to go over all 100. We're going to give you 50 through 41 and 40 through 31. We'll do a quick we'll tell you quickly who they were. We're not going to go over the other 50 or the other 50. Go back and check it out yourself, because I feel like we would be spending a lot of time just discussing that. So anybody that, wants to know who 100 through 51 was, go back and check it out online. You can find it anywhere. And we'll just go over a couple that we had in the top 100, but we're not going to, in the top or the bottom 50, but we're not going to go over all of them. Derek, go ahead and continue.
All right, number 50, you start with Bills safety Micah Hyde, who finished last season with 5 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and had 74 tackles, on the way to Buffalo's defense being number 1 ranked overall. At number 49, you have Green Bay Packers linebacker Devondre Campbell, who had 102 solo tackles with 6 QB hits, a couple interceptions, fumbles, and sacks. Number 48, you have Chicago Bears defensive end Robert Quinn, who had the single season sack record last year with 18 and a half, just a sack short of his career high in 2013. So quite a ways away. Number 47, Fred Warner, the middle linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Very crazy that where he is right now, because Fred Warner was actually ranked number 21 in last year's overall rankings, but signed that big deal the last offseason, but 137 tackles last season for the 49ers. Austin Eckler, the running back from the Los Angeles Chargers. Very crazy to see him in here. Actually tied Jonathan Taylor for the most touchdowns scored last season. Number 45 is the other safety for the Buffalo Bills, Jordan Poyer, had 93 tackles and had 5 interceptions and 3 sacks. Both were career highs. Number 44, the quarterback we were just talking about, Dak Prescott, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, cranks into the top 50 for the first time. Number 43, another guy we mentioned in the show earlier, Derwin James, the free safety for Los Angeles, just signed that big extension, obviously coming off of injury, but had some spectacular play. And obviously that injury did not keep him out of the top 50 by the players concerned. Number 42 is Cameron Hayward, defensive end out of Pittsburgh. Last season had 83 tackles with 10 sacks, 15 tackles for a loss, and 17 QB hits. Actually was 57 last year. And rounding out from 50 to 40s is offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Had played 2,256 snaps and lined up for every single one of them, only giving up 3 sacks so far in his young career. Chase, anything that stand out here from the 50 all the way to the 41?
I think that looking at some of these players, it's the spot that they're at is deserving. Like Dak Prescott, it's tough to rank him because he didn't play all last year. Do I think that there's quite a bit of guys that could be in his spot in the mid 40s like that? Yes, because there's guys that, like I said, I'm gonna go back and name some, that were kind of snubbed, but like you had guys like OBJ, who is now an NFL free agent that really did not play very well and play very much. He was ranked at 89 over some guys that were like in the 90s or like, less than that. Like, why is he ranked that high still when he didn't even play much? And then, not to mention you had other guys like Marshawn Lattimore was ranked 89 when he could have very well have been in the 40s, because you've got a corner like that who is one of the best in the league and, has put season after season together, and yet he's in the 80s. Like sometimes I wonder what these players are thinking when they're putting these lists together, because I feel like it's a popularity contest rather than how good somebody actually is and deserving of where they need to be. And like looking at this list, I think Cam Hayward, my opinion, should go just a little bit higher, maybe in the mid 30s. Like,
wow.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, you look at the numbers. I mean, think about it. Like, for a defensive tackle to get 83 tackles, I mean, that's unheard of. That is just that is just something that defensive tackles don't do. Like, defensive tackles normally don't get that many tackles unless you're elite. And I mean, it's impressive to see that Cameron Hayward continues to put up these numbers, despite the fact that he's like, 31 years old, 32 years old.
Yeah.
He's been in the league for a long, long time, dude.
And not to mention, like, if a guy like Aaron Donald, I'm not saying that, Cam Hayward is Aaron Donald by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that Aaron Donald is a defensive tackle as well, and probably the best defensive lineman in the league, has been in the top 10 over the past few years. And you've got Cam Hayward, who's putting up fantastic fucking numbers, and you've got him in the 40s. Like, that is absurd and disrespectful to him. As a Browns fan, coming from a Browns fan, going for a Steelers guy, I'll give respect and credit when credit is due. But man, like, these players, I really truly question why they put some of these players in the numbers and in the spots that they did. Like, just some of these, like, looking at them, like Micah Hyde, maybe he deserves to go a little bit further back, or he could be up there a little bit. I don't know, but like, Derek, it like looking at 40 through 31, which we'll discuss here shortly, had me.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to that here in a second.
Had me very.
I for the 50 through 41, nothing that I would say is drastically bad. I mean, I'm shocked to find Eckler at 46.
You thought he
I kind of thought he'd be lower than that, but
lower, yeah.
But again, and you kind of mentioned the idea of Derwin James, right? Like, of people saying it's a popularity contest, right? Because Derwin James, obviously we don't know much about him at the moment. We know he's highly talented. We know he can be in this area. Obviously just hasn't played much recently. So it's kind of like players saying recency bias. We know what he's capable of. So that's why we're putting him there. But I like Tristan Wirfs at 41. Honestly, I thought Tristan Wirfs could have been higher. I mean, he's been one of the best tackles in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. So there's that. But let's kind of go here now from 40 to 31. So
where I thought the list got screwed up is 40 through 31.
I know we're gonna talk about this here in a second, but
you can't sit there and tell me that you weren't like.
Listen. Okay, listen. I will admit that your guy should have been above the other one. I get it, but obviously this is the players talking here, so the players think just a tad bit differently. Okay, so
it's not just that he's behind one of the other guys on this list. It's the fact that he's 33. He should be.
We'll talk about that here in a second. But let's start at number 40. That is Justin Herbert, quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers. Obvious why Justin Herbert is this high. He has just been phenomenal with the Chargers ever since he got drafted. Number 39 is Chris Jones, defensive end for Kansas City. Had 34 QB pressures, 16 QB hurries, had 9 sacks in 2021. And number 38, you have Joe Mixon making his way in for the first time. Last season had 292 attempts and was top 5 in rushing touchdowns and first downs. Number 37 is DeAndre Hopkins, who was number 8 on this list last season. Obviously got injured halfway through the season, couldn't play in a career low 10 games, but still warranted him being in the top 40 based off the players. Had 42 receptions, 572 yards, and 8 touchdowns in that frame. Number 36 is Lamar Jackson, quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. We obviously know the former MVP, still remaining in the top 40, although was number 24 last year. Number 35, you have Keenan Allen, wide receiver out of the Los Angeles Chargers as well. Very generous here from the player's perspective. There's a lot of people that would say Keenan Allen barely cracks the top 100, and yet this guy moves up 20 spaces from last year and goes to number 35. Again, recording another 100-plus catch season in 4 of the last 5 seasons. Number 34, you have Kevin Byard, the safety out of Tennessee. And then number 33, this is the one where Chase is talking about, Nick Chubb, the running back from Cleveland. While missing a few games last year, still finished 3rd in the league in rushing yards last year.
Second in the league in rushing.
Second in league in rushing, 3rd in yards per game. I apologize. And number 32, you have Mark Andrews, tight end out of Baltimore. finished last season with 107 catches for 1,300 yards. And finishing in the top 31 there is Dalvin Cook, running back from the Minnesota Vikings. Had his third straight year of 1,100 plus rushing yards, longest active streak in the league. Also had 36 scrimmage touchdowns since 2019. So I think the one thing we've been talking about this whole way here, guys, is, and Chase and I were talking about it before we even started the stream, is, the fact that Nick Chubb is at 33 and Dalvin Cook's at 31. I think Chase and I both agree here that Nick Chubb is a better running back than Dalvin Cook, albeit not by a ton, still is better than Dalvin Cook. And I think that Chase obviously deems 33 to be too low for Nick Chubb. Do you want to explain to the viewers why that is?
This man had 3 games that he missed. 2 were due to a hamstring injury, and 1 was due to COVID. So you can't blame him for missing that one. That was just a rule that they had in place that he had to miss that game. But the fact that he missed 3 games and finished with 1,259 yards on just 228 carries. Now, if you look at all of the top running backs, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, well, minus this year, Jonathan Taylor, all of those guys have had more carries than Nick Chubb. And the fact that Chubb was splitting carries with Kareem Hunt and had a lot less opportunities to run the ball, and he still finished with almost 1,300 yards, which is very hard for a lot of running backs to get to. Like, a lot of them it's very hard to get to 1,200, but the fact that he almost got to 1,300 yards with pretty much damn near anywhere from 20 to 100 less carries than some of these top backs, and he finished second in the league in rushing overall total, and was third in yards per carry, like overall, is just blasphemy. The fact that he was 26th last year and he dropped is just disrespectful. And I shit you not, Derek, if they have Derrick Henry or Najee Harris higher than Nick Chubb, I will blow a gasket.
Oh, Derrick Henry's going to be higher. Derrick Henry going to be higher.
He didn't
I
even
don't
think
it's
Najee.
Najee's not. I don't think Najee is. But there's no way that Derrick Henry does not get higher. I mean, Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry are going to get higher.
They shouldn't. Well, Jonathan Taylor should. I agree. Derrick Henry shouldn't, because he missed half the freaking season.
I understand, but this is not a production contest here, Chase. We're understanding that these players are talking about these guys they have to face on a day-to-day basis, where they rank in a power ranking of best players, not best production, best players. If that was best production, then this list would be 100% different. But we're talking about best players, and it's clear to say that NFL players fear playing against Derrick Henry more than they probably will Nick Chubb or Dalvin Cook, for that matter.
It's disrespectful that these players can't even realize, like, with the body size that Chubb has, the ability to run fast, like he's a quick runner, and he does great moves and everything. Just what he brings to the table puts a lot of fear into people. And I've seen him stiff arm a guy who is 60 pounds heavier than him and drive him into the dirt when they played the Philadelphia Eagles. And the fact that these guys are disrespecting him this badly is blasphemous. The same thing goes with like guys like Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert and everything. Like, granted, I dog on Lamar a lot for being a quarterback of his kind of ability. I do believe that he does deserve to be just a little bit higher on this list. And I think Justin Herbert, with what he's been able to do, the fact that you have people still debating to this day whether or not Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert is better, which one, and the fact that they have Herbert at 40 is ridiculous. These are the same players that a couple years ago voted Patrick Mahomes, a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a Super Bowl MVP, fourth on this list. And they put Lamar Jackson at 1. these are the same exact players that I feel like do not like understand what they're voting for. Like this list is crazy.
I'll accept the players a word of it a little better than myself, but look, I'll look at it from this perspective. I look from the very get-go of this. Herbert probably for me is about the right spot. I don't know how you can put Chris Jones though above Justin Herbert. That's just me.
Yeah.
But and Joe Mixon, like, look, I get Joe Mixon had a phenomenal season last year. I get that. But I think him jumping from never being in the top 100 to now all of a sudden being the 38th best player.
What I'm talking about.
Way too much. Way too much. Being in the 50s, okay. Like 50s, I get it. Had a phenomenal season. Definitely should be considered amongst much. Now, obviously, I understand DeAndre. We all are in understanding that if DeAndre is fully healthy, majority of the time he's a top 5 wide receiver in this league. So I get why players like him there. Again, Lamar Jackson at 36. I think I'm surprised at just how low that was. You know, because like I'm surprised that people didn't have him like in the like the teens. You know, because like that's Lamar Jackson. I mean, nobody likes playing against Lamar Jackson. But and Keenan Allen, like again, I told you about the Keenan Allen thing. Like this goes to show you just how much better NFL players understand Keenan Allen versus what fans do. Because Keenan Allen gets overlooked so much, but yet over the last 5 seasons has been one of, if not the most productive wide receiver in all of the NFL. And yet continues to do this, but fans continue to say he's not a top 10 wide receiver in the league, even though he's one of the most productive, if not the most productive. So,
and he's had like, or minus the 2020 season, he has had, or if he would have gotten 4 more yards that season, he would have had 6 straight 1,000 yard seasons.
It's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
It's crazy.
It's the 5th straight year as the team leader in receptions. He's had 100+ receptions in 4 of the last 5 seasons. 100+ in 4 of the last 5 seasons. And has had at least 1,100 yards in all 4 of those seasons. All right. So he's been one of the most consistent guys in all of the NFL. I will say this. Kevin Byard, I'd have had in the 40s. Like, I like Kevin Byard, but I think Kevin Byard is not as elite as some people think he is. Now, I definitely think Nick Chubb should have been in the early 20s. That's just me. Or mid-20s.
I think so too.
Mark Andrews. I don't know. I mean, that one's tough for me because obviously last season, again, never been in the top 100, but this year, after having a career year that, you know, he's and obviously leading the NFL from tight end perspective in both receptions and receiving yards. It's obvious why people liked Mark Andrews. And Dalvin Cook, yeah, I would have had in the 30s somewhere. So I don't necessarily hate this one. So that's really it for that one. I know obviously you view it a different way, but we don't have the 30 through 21, which is unfortunate, but we can definitely talk about that.
That'll be on by 11 o'clock tonight is what they said. 11 p.m. we'll have 30 through 21 going. So
okay. Well, we'll discuss that in our next episode. But I think that's going to do it for this one, man. Like you said, any other stuff that we didn't discuss today, we will discuss it further at some point early this week. We'll have another stream up, but anything else you want to add, Chase, before we cut this thing down?
No, I mean, I understand the players' rankings. I just think that they disrespect a lot of the players. I mean, you said that you trust the players over your own words. Sometimes I begin to wonder if I should trust these players because, like I said, these are the same guys that voted Patrick Mahomes 4th after he had just won Super Bowl MVP and the Super Bowl after he had a 5,000 passing yard and 50 touchdown season, and they put Lamar Jackson over him when the guy couldn't even make it past the first round. So like these are the same players that ranked those guys 1 and 4. I mean, you know, that's beyond me, but All I gotta say is, sometimes I feel like players get snubbed off this list and they get disrespected. Honestly, we have not seen Shaquille Leonard on this list. I hope he is in the top 30.
If the Colts don't have 3 players inside the top 30, then somebody really messed up. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Shaquille Leonard, Quentin Nelson, and Jonathan Taylor are not in the top 30, then we riot.
Jonathan Taylor will be ranked
here.
Derek, I'm saying this right now. Shaquille Leonard will be ranked 13th. Jonathan Taylor will be ranked 8th. And Quentin Nelson, with the way that these rankings are going, will be ranked 19th.
I'm gonna have Shaquille Leonard at like 26. I'm gonna have Quentin Nelson at 17 and Jonathan Taylor at like 9th. So that's just me.
That's just you. But I thought that Nick Chubb should have been in the top 20. Like no farther back than 20. But these players spoke and they thought.
I wish. I just think that like as good as Shaquille is, I just don't know if people really ever give him credit for the things that he does.
No,
I mean, he didn't even get one vote for Defensive Player of the Year last year, and even while being hurt, led the league in turnovers altogether.
Yeah,
I mean that's how much disrespect that guy continues to get.
Yeah,
he had 15 turnovers last season and did not in total when you count fumble recoveries, fumbles, and you count interceptions and everything else. He had 15. And yet did not get a single defensive vote for Defensive Player of the Year. Not one. To me, that's more impressive than 20 sacks. That's just me. But, but I agree. That's just it. But don't worry. We'll get into it for the next show. But this was fun, man. Thank you so much, Chase. And guys, this is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your night.